And Mike Bruno, our editor, put that together. I think he really captured what we talked about this morning, which was there's got to be a way to kind of sum up in 6 months what this country has gone through, the seizing debate, the back and forth. But really, at the end of the day, very little in the way of change, at least at the national level. Let's bring in our panel on this. Jeannie Zaino, professor of political science from Iona College. Dominic Carter, of course, political journalist, author. And Andrew Whitman, who you just met, our senior political correspondent, of course. We had on Senator Blumenthal, who you saw there a little earlier, who gave, if you read between the lines, the impression that there could be a second wind to this thing, that the math, now that the cooling period's gone on, says 90% of Americans want a background check. 3/4 of the NRA members even support it. The NRA as an organization embraced it even at one point. This shouldn't be such a tough fight. The rhetoric, you know, trumped the reality with this thing. Maybe, just maybe, it'll get through. But when you see the pictures, Jeannie, right, and you get the reminder of, we didn't show the little white coffins and stuff, which to me was always the image I could never get out of my head. You know, we can't do better than the status quo. I don't care where people fall in the gun debate. The status quo can't be the best as a country we can do.
Yeah, you know, it's just heartbreaking to see. It was an amazing piece, you know, and the picture I always remember is the first one you showed with all the little kids walking out arm in arm, walking out of the school, which is just so devastating. And you're absolutely right, though. In 6 months, which this morning I said 6 months, it's been 6 months, and you look at policy change at the national level, there has been almost no change. Effective change. There has been some movement, but effective change. But at the state level and at the local level, but the state levels in particular, there has been some change. So for people who support gun control and who want background checks, there has been some movement. And I think, you know, if Senator Blumenthal is suggesting that there may be another vote, I am not as optimistic they're going to get another vote and pass it this year. But if that is the case, it may be because of the movement we've seen at the state level, where more and more people have seemed to embrace at least some, what we think of as reasonable gun control.
But the one thing we know, Dominic, and Gene's 100% right, we've seen it in New York State here, you've seen it in Connecticut in our region, New Jersey getting close also to formalizing what looks to be. But it doesn't stop at state borders. You need something of a national database with a registry. You need something where different law enforcement agencies, all law enforcement agencies, can share the same information here and everybody can work off the same database. It's a good start, but again, you need everybody to play ball and you need the feds here to take the lead on it. Are you, as like Jeannie, not optimistic that at the end of the day, in this climate in Washington, they'll get something through?
I hate to admit it, but I agree with the pessimism in terms of that you don't believe another vote is coming. I pray that I'm wrong, I really do, because our country needs this type of assistance. But what's more frightening to me, 6 months later, this is yet another illustration, Richard, of a major disconnect between Americans and their representatives, collectively. And it's just really sad. It points to the influence of money in politics, the influence of the NRA. If you told me 6 months ago, I would have said you were stark raving mad if you told me 6 months later, after those kids being laid to rest, that absolutely nothing, for the most part, on the federal level would have been done. I would have said you're absolutely wrong.
And I remember, Andrew, sitting at this table, the four of us and other people that populated, and we all said, well, we want four things. We want an assault weapons ban here. You want the ammo clip restrictions. You wanted the database, and you wanted also the background checks, right? And we said, well, you're definitely going to get the background checks, and I think we'll get it at the database. I don't know about the ammo clips. There's a 50-50 shot you'll get the assault weapons ban. The idea, like Dominic said, that of the four things, not one thing happened, and they had to plead and beg nationally and have the parents from Newtown just literally almost get on their hands and knees and say, just give us a vote. Just please, a vote even. And with our system, you needed the magic 60 just to get it through the Senate. So I'm with these guys. I would never have believed 6 months ago that we would be in the situation we are. We always said if there was one event that could really tie the country together, 26 and 7-year-olds, what more than that could say that this has got to change, but yet it hasn't.
You know, I'm with Dominic, and this is, it shows where the NRA had this debate. It shows where the country was on this before Newtown happened, that you had so many entrenched
but remember,
positions.
Everybody, in that clip that we showed, when LaPierre did that address, right, we all said that night, oh my God, these guys have just hung themselves. This was the worst I mean, whoever counseled them to put out the statement that was so tone deaf, so unfeeling, so out of the mainstream. We all said at this table, well, if this doesn't, sink the thing, nothing will. This thing's going to pass and pass soon. Somehow, some way, 5.5 months later, and still nothing.
And we generally, you don't get these votes unless they think there's a chance of it passing in the Senate. So we may not get another vote in the weeks and months to come. I hope that there is, even if it fails, even if it doesn't break the filibuster and can't fully get to the floor. Keep voting on this and make it a broken record, because the one thing that putting that piece together, it's like a loop. Because yes, it started with Newtown, but the same emotions again and again and again, the same horror again and again and again, the same tragedy again and again and again. It's going to keep happening again and again and again. So make lawmakers vote and show what we all, I think, agree is their ignorance on this again and again and again and again.
No, I was just thinking when you said right immediately afterwards, another thing everybody said, which I think is true, is if the vote, it doesn't come and it doesn't pass immediately, it is not going to happen. And I think that we've seen that play out. And I also go back to saying that President Obama should have taken a more inclusive approach. Violence is not just about guns, and that is an issue that I think he has faltered on. Mental health, violence in Hollywood, and other issues that he has not paid attention to.
I don't think he thought, and to be honest, I didn't think he needed to have to convince the people after that awful morning in Connecticut that this is a macro approach. He could have just said, "Look at this. This guy never should have been able to get a gun. We should do better than this." But you were proven to be right. And I'll only add here that in this business, there are certain things that are inevitable. The crimes and the car crashes and the shoot-em-ups, they're part of news. But there are two recurring stories lately that I know people like us dread doing. The awful storms, which seems to be happening more and more frequently, which toss everything, on its ear. And these mass shootings, whether at schools, at malls, or whatever else, especially when we've got children here as the victims, unfortunately, like clockwork, every season there's one of these. And we've seen them in rural areas, we've seen them in suburban areas, we've seen them in cities with all shades of colors with the victims involved here. And it's just getting to be too much, as they say, of a broken record. All right, of course, we'll keep coming back to this issue, hopefully with more and better news to report. But up next, we're going to bring you up to date on another story that we followed quite a bit on this program, the Stop and Frisk lawsuit. Dominic covered this case day after day down in Lower Manhattan, and we've got some news to report. U.S. Justice Department, they've weighed in at the 11th hour. Even while the judge is deliberating, we're going to have the impact on what that might mean on the ruling, and also what this also might mean as it relates to the mayoral race. Stay with us, everyone. We'll have more on that after this.